care ones. So I just wrote to Danny Avila and asked him, we'll see whether that gets anywhere. But that's our big holdup. So when we do get some vaccines for the library, that's going to be a giant help for those 90 or so library employees. We'll just have to see how all that goes. But I think that's our biggest reason for not being able to open up yet, that obviously the numbers don't work with us. And even if the numbers aren't as good, once they're vaccinated, we may be more comfortable opening, is my hope. So.
But Bill, the library workers are not considered essential workers?
Scott's shaking his head. They really, it's a good question, Barbara. I guess they fall somewhere in the 1B, or maybe they're even over in the 1C category. I'm not sure, but they're not in that first level of 3 or 4 groups of 1B. Personally, and that's why I just wrote to Dr. Avila, my view is that if RPS teachers qualify and they're not in school and they're teaching remotely, that our librarians who host after-school programs and do so much with kids when they're in, the youth librarians, young adult work, et cetera, that they should be in there just like child care workers are. I don't know that the city has backed us up on that real vigorously. So, so that's why we sort of thought maybe we better try to take this under our own hands. Sorry, I'm just moving some things around the wall. Okay, anyway, we'll see. But right now they aren't qualified. They're not in the listing for that. So I'm going to go ahead.
You don't have good grounds, because especially when they're trying to get the schools reopened, and our kids in Richmond City use the library for after-school services a great deal. So,
and you know, Barbara, I agree. I mean, to me, since I don't know whether campus is actually going to open up in March or whether we're looking at sometime in summer school, but even before the schools open, a lot of those students who are doing remote work, it would be great if they could go over to Broad Rock or go over to one of the other libraries, get out to East End, and be there in a safe environment, particularly while parents are at school and at work and doing other things, and the kids can't be in the school buildings. It's almost more important that we get opened up, and we can open up with vaccinating 75 or 80 people. We're not looking at having to get thousands of people in order to get our branches opened. So we'll see whether we get anywhere with that. Scott and I were talking earlier today, and it just occurred to me that we hadn't done anything beyond trying within the city, and that's all Scott can do. He can't really. Once Dr. Valle gave him the no, you don't qualify, we were sort of locked into that. But as an independent board, we can rattle some other cages. So we'll see whether it works. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It looks like we have a quorum, without question. The only one, let's see, who is not here? We don't seem to have Garrett. Have everybody but Garrett?
That's it.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. So, well, thank you all for coming today. And I apologize that I was not here last month. I appreciate Chris stepping in and doing a more than able job replacing me. And I'm looking forward to when Chris steps up and does that on a more permanent basis. So, but anyway, I do appreciate that. I was out of town. As I said, my wife is a teacher, and we found that she was able to get her vaccination 3 or 4 days earlier in Virginia Beach than Richmond. So we took advantage of that and ran down to the beach that day to get her taken care of, which turned out really well, because 12 days after her vaccine, one of the kids she works closely with in her first grade classroom came down with COVID, and my wife did not. So I take that as a really good sign. Either the kids aren't that transmissible, or that the vaccine had worked within 12 days. So well, let's just jump right in, if we can, to the agenda, which I lost where I put my agenda. I apologize. I've got a printed copy of it. I'm getting there somewhere. Anyway, the first thing we need to do is approve the agenda for today. And we have to do that on a roll call basis. I just cannot, I'm sorry, I had this out earlier and I just do not see it. Okay, well, let's go in and do that one. A roll call basis. Chris, to approve the agenda as
Aye.
as submitted. Yeah, aye. Okay. Emily,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Brent.
Aye.
Garrett's not present. Janet. Janet. Oh, you're muted, Janet, but just nod your head and I'll see you.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And Gail.
Aye.
Okay. And by the way, Brent, I wanted to say it's nice to see you today, and I'm glad to see that you're in good health. We know you've had a had a rough time with COVID there.
Yes, I did.
And I think we're all getting to know more and more people who've struggled through it, but we're really glad that you've done so well with it. So thank you. We also need to do the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the meeting, etc. I don't know why we got to both of them, but we have to do that one also. So Chris. Aye.
Aye.
Emily.
Aye.
Barbara.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Brent. Brent's not.
Aye.
And Garrett's not here. Janet
Aye.
and Gail.
Aye.
Okay, now public comment period. And I just got to bring up the agenda in a minute here. And nothing in the public comment period. No one's fine to speak, right? Okay, then we're just going to jump right on into the meeting. And Scott, I believe that starts with you, doesn't it? No, you're muted. I have to.
We lead off with the Friends.
The Friends.
So Ruth is here. She can give a quick report from the Friends.
Ruth, if you'll do that, I'm going to bounce out for a second. I hope I don't lose y'all, and print my agenda because I misplaced my copy. So jump right in, Ruth.
All right, thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. I see a couple new faces, and I'm Ruth, I'm the president of the Friends, and we will get to know each other, I hope, sooner than later. And I'm also gonna have to check with Gianna and get your contact information. I believe today, maybe tomorrow, today, we are gonna send out our winter newsletter. And so you should, if we have your email, you should be getting that via email. And we're going to start rolling through some history of the library coming up on the 100th anniversary of the library, and some bits and pieces of information and Friends business. We haven't done a great deal recently, but we are looking to have still very loosely informal spring sale in the park. Spring, more like summer sale in the park. And then, I mean, if we take the news for what we hear, we maybe could have a fall sale. Don't know yet, but we are just kind of keeping abreast of the news, and Scott, of course, keeps us abreast of RPL and your directions. So we'll see what is going on with that. And I had one more item, and it has completely left my head. I'll have to come back to it later if I remember. So thank you very much, and I'll be checking to see if we have all of your contact information. And for those of you who have sent in membership renewals and new memberships, thank you very much, and appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
And Ruth, I think maybe you mentioned last time, but just so everybody knows, the Friends is on a different fiscal year from the rest of the world.
Yep.
So your last meeting, you went through the budget.
Yeah, and that was what that's what left my brain, was the
I
budget.
thought it might be.
So actually March is the last month of our fiscal year. And so April, we will start our new fiscal year. So we've done our budget. many, many, many thanks to Scott and Clay and Arlene for going through the books. And they have found funds that we have given the library that just haven't been spent. So we are very thankful. I mean, we want to give the library money, but just kind of trying to look at our books and see what we could do without having book sales that we've been having, which is the major way that we collect funds. We were looking at not being able to give a lot to the library, but thankfully Scott and Clay and Arlene have been looking at the books and looking through funds that have not been spent. Of course, funds have not been spent for programs that did not happen and things that did not happen in person. So we've been able to greatly adjust our budget, and we will technically be giving less to the library this year. And the kind of base level of things that we pay for, like the graphics design, copier and such, we are funding. But the vast majority of things that we typically fund for programs, those will now get paid as they come along out of the funds that the library has not spent that we've given in the past. So that has been a tremendous help to us, and we thank them for that. And that is it for now. Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. That's great. And really, it's been a tough year for the Friends, and we appreciate everything y'all have done. That I saw you renewed that lease on the copier and everything. That's a big help. Just those baseline things that you're still doing. Scott, did you want to jump in from the foundation perspective?
Yeah, so this morning the Foundation Finance Committee met and they reviewed the last quarter of earnings and profit and loss and general ledger. Things are tracking pretty well. Next week we will have an executive foundation meeting in preparation for the full board meeting in March. So that'll be March 10th, I believe. That'll be the following week. So that's coming up, and we'll get kind of an assessment and kind of probably lay out the calendar for the next year for the foundation in terms of what we're going to do. The good news is we've stepped through the hiring process, interviewed candidates for Karen's position, and we've made an offer. We're just awaiting HR's approval of some final paperwork to announce that. So hopefully soon we'll be able to do that. And I'm optimistic that we'll have that person in place by mid-March. So hopefully that all kind of happens. So other than that, we wrapped up the annual giving fund. We'll probably be able to report on that next month, but that's about where we're at with the foundation for now. So.
Thank you. Want to roll right on to your administrative report?
Right. So let's see, you saw my report. We've continued to hire pretty robustly. We've got a lot of folks who are waiting for final approval, and then we'll fill a lot of those 12 positions that we had posted last November and kind of work through the process, step through the whole hiring process in January. So we have to have them moving on board at that time. We've been, as I mentioned, I think I might have mentioned this last month, we're working on an onboarding program to improve the way we bring people in and get them brought on board in a better way, so they know about the library, our strategic plan, and how things work. They can get to know their colleagues. So we're going to retool all that. We've got a big kind of cohort of folks coming in, and I think it's a nice opportunity for us to really improve how we onboard people. So I'm kind of excited about that, and hopefully we have those people coming on board next month when that grant writer position comes on board. You'll notice in our board, in our finance document, that we've overspent our like our membership funds. We've invested in an affiliate membership in Virginia Library Association, and that affiliate membership allows us to include all of our professional and paraprofessional staff as members in VLA. I believe it also includes our board members in VLA, so you'll start receiving information from them about what's happening in Virginia public libraries, and Virginia libraries in general. So I felt it was a good thing for us to get engaged in. It helps raise the knowledge base of all of our staff. And I think it assists really with training and engages people. So I received word from VLA that they will be having they're planning to have a conference in Richmond this fall. So hopefully some of you can either attend that, and we can send as many staff as we can, because it'll be, I think, a wonderful opportunity if we can come together and learn more about libraries, Virginia libraries, and network throughout the state. So I think that's a real enhancement to our staff training, our building knowledge base, and really helping everybody feel a part of the library community. So that's a big thing that happened this month. And it also supports our library association. Virginia Library Association has been around for a long time. They have been struggling for membership, and this is something they're doing to try and increase membership of libraries in Virginia. So I think it's a wise thing to do, and I think it'll just help everybody. So
Thank you.
yeah, it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it includes our friends and our volunteers. So I think we can include many of those people in it
Wow.
too. It's a really good opportunity. Let me give you a quick COVID update. We're still doing curbside virtual programming. That continues. We're watching the numbers. Hopefully we can start turning the dial back, and probably the next thing, once we get that positivity rate to kind of where it was back in the fall, we'll bring back on the computers by appointment. The other thing was vaccine. There was the early discussion in this meeting about vaccine, and it's kind of a wide open, every man for himself sort of situation, which is unfortunate. We had a meeting with the city kind of assessing who's eligibility guidelines for city staff, library staff, based on all the different parameters that they have in place. Right now, I'm not real hopeful we're going to be able to get our people through in that category. So I really recommended if staff can get it through other means, then they should chase it. And we'll keep working on it from our end. So, I mean, it's just wide open right now. So we'll see. Hopefully we get more vaccine on the back end so we can start getting people protected against the virus. So I do want to note in the board packet, you notice we had a nice long list of activities that were happening this month for Black History Month. I think I'm very proud of all of the work our staff put into that. It's really a fabulous just variety of things, and very robust and very engaging. It's been great. So even though we're in virtual, I think the quality and content of our program still is excellent. And we have a lot of great opportunities for people to engage that way and kind of meet them where they're at. So that's really been something that's hopefully we can continue it going into the future. So I'm very proud of that.
I might mention that we have an event tonight, tomorrow, and Friday night, sort of to round out. So there's still 3 if you haven't had a chance to look at anything. Still 3 events going.
So try and catch one of those. I received notification yesterday from the Dublin Book Award. That's a program that we participate in every year. They finalized their long list. And so I will share that with staff, and we'll have another opportunity to vote and partake in that. So that's kind of something fun that we've been doing. So that's a brief update on that. And I also got word yesterday that the VCU has selected their common book. The book this year will be, let me get the exact title. It's on climate change. And the title is Rising Dispatches from the New American Shore by Elizabeth Rush. So the past 2 years, we've participated with that with VCU. We purchased books, offered them through the community, and done all kinds of programming around it. So it's been a really positive thing. It's almost overwhelming, kind of the how timely the topics have been, and how they hit the target. And I'm very proud of all of the stuff we've done. If you recall, we did Evicted, and then this last year we did One Person, No Vote. And goodness gracious, you couldn't have picked more timely topics. So
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see if this title turns into what it was the last 2 years. So we'll see. So we'll start planning and beginning building the programming for that, and that'll come this fall. So, and I think Clay, we're also working on Read Up Richmond. That's another big program that we're working on. I don't know that we have all the details nailed down on that, but hopefully we can share that with you soon. So let's see. And I think that is about everything from my report.
Do you want to touch, as long as you're covering sort of these things merged together a little bit, the facilities? We're going, I guess, as
in regards to the whole.
Yeah, the whole KEI,
Okay.
Master plan.
Yeah, so this is part of the facilities report. I can give you some more information. Jonna sent out a little bit of she sent out a kind of a overview of the package that Steinberg, Hart, and KEI put together onto how they'll do the renovation master plan for Main Library. I shared that with you to give you an idea of who they are, where they are, who's going to be involved in it, what the timeline will look like, their process. Also, libraries that they've worked with around the country. Steinberg Hart is an international firm. They have offices overseas in, I think, Hong Kong, maybe. But they're a large firm, and it's very impressive some of the things that they have done. And most importantly, they partner with KEI, which is a local architectural firm who's done things like the GRTC bus transfer station. And you think, oh, GRTC bus transfer station. If any of you have seen it down on in Southside, it's not just a bus garage. It's a pretty impressive building. They've also submitted plans for the city for a Shako Bottom kind of African-American memorial that's down there. That is a cool looking building. So I think we have a good team, and what separated KEI and Steinberg Hart from the other really talented architectural firms is they really seem to consider our project and want to really design a building that would be reflective of our needs and our wants for the next 50 years. They didn't come to us and show us all of the things they did and cookie cutter us, in terms of they do the same library everywhere. They seem pretty genuine and thoughtful when it came to that, and it really set them apart from other folks. We had the other firm that had applied, Anteros Design, which is a local firm. They did a wonderful job as well. But Steinberg Hart just really kind of came with a lot more diversity and ideas about where we could go. So, and that really impacted the committee, and that's how they kind of rose to the top.
Can I ask two questions, Scott? I actually thought it was a very well written executive summary. Lots of pictures, all state of the art proposal report writing. My two questions are, I know we're going for LEED certification. I don't know what level. Are we going to try and do the well or the fit well, the complementary inside certifications too?
That's a good question. For the city of Richmond, one of the things that hung up this procurement in the past was the city had a resolution that all buildings for the city of Richmond will be at least silver LEED certification. That wasn't in the first proposal, so we had to kick it out and do it again. So silver is kind of the basic benchmark. I think that's
it's the lowest level, right?
It's the lowest level, I think. Yeah. I would hope we could come up with ideas that could almost get us to net zero or net positive.
Right. Or at least gold, at least gold.
Yeah. And I think when people look at LEED, and I know that I was skeptical of LEED 10 years ago, that, oh my goodness, we got to do all this stuff. It's just going to add cost. And some of these environmental things don't really work, the composting toilets and all that stuff. Well, I think LEED has changed a lot in the last 20 years. I think the way we look, and it's ironic that this climate change thing, the way we think about the environment and making sustainable buildings, I think that has shifted quite a bit too. And I'm hopeful, and I am pretty confident that Steinberg Hart will be able to kind of guide us in that. Again, they're an international firm. I think they have a lot of experience with this, and they deal with this in lots of localities throughout the country. I really would hope that we would go well beyond silver and be a net zero, because if anybody's been following like Bill Gates lately, Bill Gates has done a whole thing on with his foundation and how we need to decrease our carbon footprint and really try and be more sustainable. And net zero should be the minimum standard. I don't believe there are many. I think there's one net zero building in the Commonwealth that's down in Virginia Beach. And I don't believe it's a government building. I don't know if we have any government buildings that are net zero, but I think it's an interesting opportunity. I'm hoping we can get there. I may be the only one saying this, but LEED silver would be a good step in the right direction, but we will do that. What was your other question?
My other question is the scope include the outside of the building, the parking, the back little picnicky area, or is it just the interior of the building?
No, it's the whole building. Yeah, it's the whole building. Yep. And that was one thing that we really stressed, and Gail can remember this. We really wanted to talk about how the building is part of this kind of fabric downtown, and we have so many opportunities with the park. And, we essentially take up a whole block on between Franklin and Main Street. And I'm hoping that we consider, like, we don't have an entrance from Main Street. I don't know how many times people have said, well, why? You mean the library on Main Street, that you can't get in from Main Street? So that's something to think about. I mean, so those are all so the whole building is going to be looked at. And I think that'll be that opportunity to like program it, assess it, and envision what this library could be for the next 50 years. I told a candidate, we were interviewing somebody, I told a candidate, but every 50 years we renovate the library in Richmond. So 28 and 72, 28, we built the building. 72, we basically built a new building around that original building. So in 22, we're going to look at like doing it again. So it's exciting, going into our next 100 years. After this 100 years is we have a lot of things coming together. So, and I think it's also really exciting that we're going to be coming out of this COVID, because COVID's going to change the way we look at this building too. So those were all factors. All the architects in the evaluation presented that said, yeah, this is changing how we do things. So.
May I just say, add a couple things, Chris? One example to answer your question is the side exit to nowhere on 2nd Street is 2,000 square feet. And so we thought was a good opportunity. And I included that as an example of a creative opportunity for an architect to come up with something that is usable there, and maybe multiple stories. And Scott even mentioned, maybe bumping out to the Main Street side without impacting the use of the park as much. The variable is the corner property on Main and First Street is on the National Register. And for instance, when the renovations were done in the last few years, there are site issues, the vistas from that building to our property. So there are some issues there, but I think, somebody creative can come up with some good options. The other thing I wondered, Scott, can KEI maybe send us copies of that packet? I do 99% of my life on iPad now, and it's kind of impossible to read it on that. I looked and I tried to print, and it dumps me into a paid HP Smart printing option where I have to pay for it. So with all the color and all that business.
You want a print copy of the thing?
Even that, the agenda pages or the proposals for the process would be helpful. Yeah, I don't want them to go to a lot of expense, but it'd be helpful to know that cast of characters. There was a flow chart of who's involved.
All of the subcontractors and partners that they'll have involved in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't need, I can go back and look at all the bios and things like that, but anyway, I think it'd be helpful for all of us to have that and
Okay. Yeah,
at your convenience.
we'll print that. We can print that off for you.
That's it. If it's too expensive, skip it. I'm still a print person.
That's fine. I mean, how many times do we design a main library? It's happened like twice in the last 100
Right.
years. So
Right. This is a big deal.
we can
Yeah.
we can make some have some paper. So that's no problem.
Scott, I think it's a great choice, and I'm thrilled that we're finally at this point. And it's been a lot of work on your part getting us there. So thank you.
A lot of people's.
A lot of folks, yeah. So the contract, from what you told me, is pretty much in the process of being signed. Has been signed.
No, it was signed last Friday. So
It was signed Friday. Okay, so we're now in the planning process, and when you and I talked about that, we both expressed an interest in getting it going quickly, but also some in-person type of work. So I guess the goal is, as people look at the first group, the first meeting, that looks like one that's primarily library staff, the facilities committee particularly, as well as some general city. It's not one that's open to the general public. So maybe Janet, you and facilities, and we can all discuss, as getting that going, how we want to do that, whether we can actually meet in a socially safe, spaced environment face to face with this team, or whether we need to do it via Zoom. But when that gets going, I think, Scott, your goal is to maybe have that in March, something like that first meeting to discuss. And then after that meeting, I think we're at least 45 days before the next meeting. So we're hopeful we'll be able to, before they get to the public ones, be, it's hard to do a charrette when you can't have people physically there. So I think we're hoping that'll be set for that. Anything else on facilities, Scott or Janet? Did you have anything you wanted to add? Oh, you're muted, Janet.
I had a question on the timing. There's a plate, it's page 52. This is a Scott question. It mentions 60 days completion, and it sounds like Steinberg Hart is already saying this is not possible in 60 days. So I wondered when the clock started on those 60 days that they're referencing.
All right, that's a good question. I don't believe a PO has been issued yet, and we had discussion about that because one of my concerns was, and Bill hit on that, is that it would be very helpful that if we could have community meetings that were in person. So if this takes a little bit longer to do, I think there's a lot of value in that. And I don't want to shortchange that process. I know we can do a lot virtually. We've been living on virtual for a long time, but I do want us to try and meet in person and share some documents that we can get our hands on. I'm praying that by April or May, we've all kind of had some vaccine and we can maybe start considering meeting in safe ways like that. So if we can elongate this process so that can happen, then that would allow that. And I had a discussion with one of the principals of Steinberg Hart as we were negotiating this and brought that up. And I'm not real clear on how that timeline is going to work yet. It really depends on how that contract was finalized and how much wiggle room there is in that in the timeline. But that is my concern too, Janet. And I'm hoping that we can come to something that will work. I'll know more very soon because as that contract times that PO gets issued, we'll be able to nail down how this will work. And you all will be included on it. You as the chair of the facilities committee and Gail and those folks will be very much involved. And I believe there's a lot of things that we can do that before we have to have in-person meetings. I mean, we really need to look at our program, look at our collections, look at all of those. There's a lot of data that's going to have to be done, and they're going to have to do a lot of work and seeing what this building is about, looking at the past history of it so that we can start figuring out what we have so that we can, share that vision or share ideas with our community to get their input to draw up what we want to do going forward. So I don't know how long all that's going to take. I'm gonna know more, but as soon as I know, I will let you all know so we can start getting a plan together. So does that answer your question?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I'd echo what Scott said, that it's a pretty complex, what we're looking for. It's taken longer to get a bid through procurement than some of what they expect the architects, the
Right.
time they expect them to get major things done. I think it's overly optimistic, and when we want it to be done right, not fast. So, let's look at those time schedules with a little skepticism and figure that we need more time on most of that probably than
Good.
in the 30, 45-day type of windows that they have between things. I'm going to mention on facilities also, Janet, I guess you're aware of the Whole Street, the hole in the building. You mentioned it the other day. And Scott, you said tomorrow, Friday is a pre-bid conference for the builders or the people quoting on doing the repairs to come in, meet with the city, ask any questions they want prior to their bids going in. So after that, then we'll be moving on toward city making its decision. I don't think there's any reason for anybody from the Board of Trustees to be there. It is open to the public, I believe. So if anybody wants to, you could do that. It's over at Whole Street on Friday morning from 10 to noon. But it's mainly going to be a bunch of contractors asking detailed questions about what's meant in the bid and clarifying probably materials and everything else if it's not. So that's the other big thing I think on facilities schedule, getting that building a little more functional maybe by the time we have the doors open again. So governance, Emily, did you have anything?
No updates.
Okay. So I'd like to move on then to the couple of things on the, I guess, chairman and the talking points accomplishments. Wanted to mention, I think first off on the Steinberg Hart, the KEI, good choice. We're going to be, I hope, very happy with them from everything I've read and some of the folks I know with those. I wanted to point out that we're still doing really well, I think, on circulation, given the closed, the curbside only. The online is considering continuing to do consistently well as far as circulation also. I thought it was neat to see how many new library cards were issued also, which sort of surprised me given you tend to think of people going into the library to get their cards. So that was a good thing. Scott is going to get a little more information from me on this, but one thing when I looked at the programs that I wanted to point out is, and I don't know whether the young adult librarians have led this, who's leading this, but from what I saw, the highest attended virtual program that we showed in that report was for Cash Flow is King as a youth program with 193 attendees. I don't know whether that's one session or 10 sessions or 20 people or whatever it is, but I found that really interesting and very heartening. It's just showing that however we're doing it, we're reaching a youth community that really needs that kind of budgeting expertise and exposure. And I'm guessing that it might be in cooperation with RPS, which is also a goal that we've been having, is closer coordination with the school system. So anyway, I just wanted to congratulate and point out if y'all hadn't noticed how well that had gone. So that leaves us with the only thing that I had on that I wanted to talk about is, well, two things, I guess. One is contacting City Council about budget, and the other is what are we going to look like post-COVID, which I think Scott and Chris challenged you with at the last meeting, and I think that's very important. First, let's talk real quickly about the City Council contacts. Scott, do you want to quickly touch on where we are as far as the budget process in the city? And when, we all saw may have seen the $9 million from the rainy day fund that was taken the other day. Clearly the picture is not entirely rosy as far as the budget in the city.
Yeah, this kind of blends into the finance committee stuff. And last month we talked about advocacy ideas and details that would be helpful if for board members and the finance committee folks who have meetings with the decision makers with how that's all going to take place. So in the board packet, you'll notice there's an infographic, which is pictures worth 1,000 words. And I have to thank Adam Zimmerly at East End for helping us put that together. He's calling it the pandemic edition, which I think is kind of a way to soften the blow on some of those numbers and try to really tries to lay out what we've been able to do in our adaptation during this whole COVID crisis. I also included a list of accomplishments in there. So it kind of details all of the things that were achieved during 20 and going into 21. I think the thing that we really need to kind of toot our horn about is that we eliminated fines. This board eliminated library fines last year, and that was a huge barrier to many of our most vulnerable citizens and learners in this community. And it showed how progressive we are in terms of thinking about informing, enriching, and empowering our citizenry. And so I think that's something to talk about, and I think it's quite a great accomplishment.
I might mention recently there's been some controversy down at the beach, and Virginia Beach, is the largest city, not as big as Fairfax County, but the largest city in the state. And they are still charging dues, fines, and they're trying to eliminate them. Mm-hmm. And reading the news down there, there's a little bit of controversy about it. It's nice to see that we're actually sort of out ahead of them on that one. It was nice.
Well, I think we really were thoughtful and deliberate about our process. We just didn't go headlong into it. We studied it, and we took that burden off of children first, and then we saw the success we had there and the benefits from it, and we extended it to the whole community because, we have a lot of folks who $5 or $10 fine for returning a book that's slightly overdue is a burden. And we don't want to be that. We, as the learning institution for everyone in this city, we can't let that happen. And you want to talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, there we go. So I think that's an important point, and I think that's just a fact that we're doing what we need to do. Yep. So I think our list of accomplishment, I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. So and then I also put down our goals and objectives from our 5-year plan in there. Because that reminds people that we're not just the place for books. We're that learning institution that we're striving to connect with all of our learners in the city of Richmond in the ways that they learn. We're trying to meet them where they're at. We pivoted during this pandemic. We reach out virtually, but we also have been maintaining our curbside services. And there are very few things that people cannot do in our libraries at present in this COVID situation. The biggest complaints I'm getting right now is that they can't get on a computer and surf and do what they need to do on a computer workstation, and they can't come in and browse the books. Those are about the two things that can't be done, but we're able to meet that in so many ways. And as this pandemic goes away, we'll definitely open that up. So, reminding our council of those things, but also stressing that last year we took a 9% cut. We took a 9% cut in personnel and a 9% cut in our materials. That really reversed some positive things that we did over the last 4 years. We've had to roll back Sundays in our branches. We've had to roll back evening hours. We have now inconsistent start times in our branches, and we must get those positions filled so that we can restore that. And so it's not, and I said, and I keep saying that we're not doing this in a shaming way. We're doing this in a, hey, this is the consequence of it. These are things that we had to do based on the tough decisions that were made. These are tough decisions for us, but I don't know how we can't do what we used to do with the funding levels that we have right now. So restoring our funding to FY20 levels is critical. The FY21 budget, that's just a hard fact. You can look at the numbers and see where it's at. So,
and Scott, that's really the goal. That as far as when people say, well, what do you want money wise? That's our goal, right?
Right.
When we talk to council people.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, Garrett, we obviously a couple of months ago divvied up folks, and you and Scott put together these talking points. everyone feel comfortable with enough information on this to reach out, or does anybody have questions? And if so, Garrett and Scott are here to answer them.
I don't think I saw the talking points. Just to confirm, did they come out by email?
They're in the board report, Emily. And if not, I can send them to you. And as always, if you have a meeting with council, I'm happy to sit in on those things and answer questions or explain things. I'm always available to do that with any meetings with council or the mayor. The mayor was in the building not too long ago. He was putting together his Read Across America presentation. Read Across America is coming up, I believe, on March 3rd. That's a huge thing. And in the past, it used to be very Dr. Seuss centric, but we've kind of shifted away from Dr. Seuss, which I'm kind of happy for, because if you've ever had to read a Dr. Seuss book that's not One Fish, Two Fish,
I'm living it. Yeah.
It's a tongue tire. So there's so many other fabulous children's literature things that we get a chance to read. I have to thank Beth Morris, our children's librarian, who helped the mayor prepare his reading his books, and he filmed it here. So he'll shout out to us. And so, our council and our mayor is very supportive of our effort. They're faced with the challenges that we have, trying to make things happen. And so that's kind of how, we're going at it. But if you need those talking points, I try to include them in this board packet. I also want staff to know what's going on. Those numbers are helpful for them. I mean, I think transparency and everything we do is really important. And so I think if all of us know these details, then we can all tell the story of what our needs are much better.
Emily, when I refer to as talking points, I guess are really the list of significant accomplishments, Scott? Is that what you're thinking? That and the pandemic edition document. So those, I think we need to sort of maybe think about other, any specifics that you have and ask Scott or Garrett. But the biggest thing is those are sort of some of the things we've accomplished. And what we're looking for is restoring that budget to the 2021.
And Bill, if I could add one thing, I'm actually a part of a small community group called Richmond Together. We've been actually really fighting towards, getting city council and also the mayor and his administration together to talk about some budget things that we really want to push towards. One of those things that we included in our recommendations that we actually sent out yesterday was related to the library budget. So we've actually requested that we meet with them individually. Starting next week, because I know the mayor's budget is going to be presented on the 5th or the 6th. So as soon as I get more information about, city council and those meetings, and also with the mayor's administration, I will share that with Bill and also with Scott so they can get that out to the rest of the group. Because, I wanted to make sure just from my angle, from a finance perspective, that we could get as much exposure as possible to city council and to the mayor's administration to really push for, the budget changes that we need.
Excellent. Excellent. And I'm taking a page out of Gail's book from, I think, 2016, when she wrote a letter to the city council. And mine's probably a little softer maybe than yours was, Gail, because the city has treated us well in the last 4 or 5 years compared to what you had in 2016.
That's a compliment.
You have done a nice job with it, but I'll go ahead. That letter is going to, I've just finalized it, and I need to get Jonna to put it on city letterhead. It'll go out pretty quickly here, and I'll get a copy out to everyone so that you can see what I've said to the city council. As it's not really a baseline, but it gives you a little information. Okay.
2016, we were facing closing branches, so it was a big deal.
Yeah. Yours, like I said, yours was really well crafted and tactful. And had a lot of backbone. So mine has tried to be a little more congenial just because, we're sort of all in this COVID thing together. I mean, most of what we're dealing with here is a COVID related injury as far as our budget.
Right.
Okay.
May I just ask,
Yeah.
Scott, is there a library friendly council member like we used to have with Parker?
It's a little too early to tell. I think there are, I don't know of any of them that are against us,
Right,
they all really are supportive of us. I spoke to Counselor Lambert yesterday. She and her administrative liaison requested a meeting, so I gave her an overview. She's taken over for Chris Hilbert. I think she's going to do a wonderful job. She was very enthusiastic about everything that's happening at North Avenue and Ginter Park, and is really thrilled to just be involved, and was very pleased to hear what we've been working on and what we're trying to accomplish. I explained to her the case that we're talking about right now with her, and she understood it, and I think she'll do the best she can to help us recover where we were. So, but yeah, I think all of our council people are very supportive and want to see our library succeed. So the information that we're providing them helps them in their case of answering any questions to our community. So.
Yeah, and Scott, I might mention, I could be wrong about this, but I believe that Andreas Addison was a librarian at one time.
He worked in libraries.
Worked in library, okay. He sort of bills himself as having spent years in that and having been well influenced by it. So I hope he would be one who's supportive. He's a little wishy-washy sometimes on these things, but let's try.
Well, I don't know about that. I have met with Counselor Addison, and I've tried to attend his meetings, or I've attended his meetings, and he is as helpful. He wants to help, that's for sure. And he's very supportive. So
let me build on what you guys are all saying. It's audience. So if you have insight into your council person, I know Gail has worked with Catherine Jordan, our person. We know Catherine is very much involved in the school. She had school-aged children. That means that when you talk to her, you really want to emphasize families, because you know that's a hot button for her personally and perhaps politically. So as we think, we have a lot to be excited about, but we kind of want to make that message really hit as hard as possible to our own council person's agenda and wishes and goals and missions. The more we make them look good, the more we resonate with what they feel. So I think this is a great list. I think there are certain things that should always be in every one of our comments, but there's room, I think, to emphasize, focus, to hit a particular specific audience as robustly as we can.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that, Chris. When you look at the numbers, I mean, I always am struck by differences, say, between circulation at Broad Rock maybe and West End. The two, the sort of opposite ends of the spectrum a little bit. And both of them are very active, vibrant libraries. West End has a little bit older, higher educated population that is more interested in getting books. Broad Rock, we're dealing with a lot of English as a second language type of users, younger. And I think we do have to stress, we really meet the needs of both. But if you're talking to Andreas, he's more concerned about the West End, a little bit older skewing population. And if you're down the South Side, it's a different one there. So I think you're absolutely right. We do need to think about that and stress what the driving goals are for each of those. Okay, any other thoughts about that before we sort of jump into any discussion of what we're going to look like post-COVID?
So can we share the graphic with all the numbers on it? Can we share that?
Absolutely.
I thought it was great.
We should. Yeah, that is a really powerful graphic.
Yeah, it really is good.
If you'd like us to print up some colorized version of those that we could send out, if that would be helpful, I can include some of those. Just let me know how many you would like. Half dozen for each of you. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Plenty, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I am going to mention, because I'm going to send a copy of my letter out, that, and Scott and I sort of wrestled with this when I talked to him about it. You don't want to comparisons, the old, comparison to odious thing, but we have to be careful when comparing ourselves with our neighboring libraries. But it struck me, I got the numbers from Scott when I was putting this together. I was shocked at the disparity between Henrico's funding per person and ours. We're less than half per person of what Henrico funds for their libraries. And that doesn't include their 120 million in library construction, budget, bonding, et cetera. That's just the operating funding difference. Whereas what, Scott, I don't have the number in front of me, $29 a person or something. Let me just get that real quickly.
Henrico's at $56 per capita, and we're at less than 28 per capita.
28, yeah.
Lower than that after the cuts of last year. Just in perspective, Henrico.
Yeah, we're at 26.
26. So Henrico's budget for libraries is $18 million. Ours is $5.75 million. So
we do have more people, but
yeah. Now, granted, Henrico has 320,000 people. We have 220,000 people, but we aren't even at 60% of what their budget is.
Right. So the per capita budget.
Think about it in terms of that. And you know, Chesterfield is their budget is probably twice our budget, and they have more people as well, but their per capita is a little bit closer to ours. It can be dangerous when you play these per capita numbers for this budget versus our budget. We have different needs and they have different opportunities. So, but I do think at the end of the day, that is a key thing. We're not even a third of what Henrico is spending. And we get compared to Henrico and we get told, why don't you have this? Henrico has all this. Well, there's a very simple reason. They have much more of all of those things.
And we have some disadvantages by the nature of our spread out, not that we're as geographically broad as Henrico or Chesterfield, but we have more branches, smaller branches, and that has some inefficiency of scale in that case. We don't get the economies of you need at least a couple of people every time you open, and yet they're very small branches for that. So if anything, you would think our operating costs per capita are probably higher than they are, where you can have a couple of big branches instead of smaller ones.
And I think we're pretty safe in that comparison.
Just what I was going to stress was just to be careful of using the numbers, because they are tricky. They can be turned, people can get annoyed by it. They can say, well, we're not Henrico. We don't have, this resource, that resource. But it's just, like I said, I was just shocked at the difference in how much money they have. Because I do hear from people that say, boy, have you seen the beautiful Libby Mill? Have you been out to the new East, the one out Newmarket, in Henrico, and so on. And, they are beautiful libraries, but they've got a lot more money to run them. And I think about 10 times as much in capital in the last 10 years as we have, or 20 times as much, something like that.
Yep.
So they've had a lot more money to work with there. Right. So let's go ahead and move on real quickly to the question, what will RPL look like post-COVID? Anything people want to talk about there? Just opening it, throwing it open.
I have one thing that I'd like us at RPL to think about. I think as soon as the kids get back to school, there will be a huge push for every institution surrounding schools to help these kids catch up. And so everything that the library can do that will help these kids in some way or another recapture almost a lost year is going to be really resonant with funders, for our new foundation person, for our council people. That's mine to put on the table.
I don't disagree with you, Chris, but I also just wanted to mention, for someone who I have a young kid now, not a school-age kid, but what I'm hearing from other parents is just that people are so exhausted. This year has been miserable for a lot of families, and stress around school especially has been really hard for kids who are school age. So while there is a need to catch up, and while I think that it's really important for us to work with the schools on that, I think that also we need to remember that a lot of families do not have an appetite for pressing their kids to do more schooling outside of school. For a lot of kids, it's going to be more important to catch up on any kind of independence and like kind of developing independence that they might have missed in the last year on like social and community building. So things like video game clubs at the libraries might actually be more important for like overall well-being than necessarily catching up on, you know, trigonometry or things like that.
Your voice is really important, Emily. I learned just from listening to you.
Yeah, that's it.
And also, you know, the taste of our children is changing. I see more and more of them involved in graphic novels are the big thing. My 8-year-old granddaughter has discovered them, and oh my gosh, Amazon delivery every day. But you know, things of that nature. Are we working with Judy Deachman, the media instructional specialist for Richmond Public Schools, to kind of coordinate, you know, what we have and what they have, and to publicize our events through Richmond Public Schools, you know, because as the numbers indicated on the finance one, you know, the other children, I'm sure, would join in some of our teen clubs and things of that nature if they knew about it. My other concern is, what are we doing to touch the Hispanic population? That's Southside. You know, the numbers at the Hull Street and Broad Rock branch, you know, should be increasing, but you know, that's where the large Hispanic population is. And are we working with the Sacred Heart Center? That's right down, you know, it's on Perry Street, right down from the Hull Street branch. I see a need for things like Hispanic YouTube videos on how to use the library resources, you know, what we have and that sort of thing. You know, the Sacred Heart Center concentrates a lot on GED, you know, getting the adults to get the GED. What resources do we have that they can access that will help them? What do we have in Spanish, or that translates, you know, that we have both in English and Spanish? And also for the children, you know, what Hispanic resources do we have for the children? Do they see themselves in the literature that's on our shelves? Is there an inventory of Hispanic authors or books or, you know, anything of that nature? You know, and like I said, we could work with the Sacred Heart Center to inform that population of our copying services, the free library card. You know, many of them do not know about the things that we have. And my third issue, I saw in the director's calendar about meeting with the Homelessness Advisory Council. What part are we playing in the homeless issue in Richmond?
Good question.
That was a group that was put together that the DCAO of Human Services asked me to be a part of, because homelessness is a huge issue in the city of Richmond. And he put together a task force in the end of December that met through January to review all of the resources available for homeless and talk about strategies to address people who are experiencing homelessness. And it has been a very educational and confirming sort of task force. They're going to prepare their report, and it's coming out in the next few weeks. Yeah, we have had a kind of a multifaceted strategy towards helping and assisting people who are experiencing homelessness, and that will continue. But yeah, that was a part that I've been engaged in, and you'll see that report coming out at City Council, and that they're going to make recommendations to City Council to talk about the Continuum of Care, which is, when I say the Continuum of Care, that's the city's overall strategy to address homelessness in the city of Richmond. So it deals with things like rapid rehousing, addictions, working with groups like Caritas, and all of those nonprofit groups in the city of Richmond who are focused on addressing this strategy. And I'll tell you, this last month, I've learned a lot, even more about all of the different things that the city does to kind of address this problem. And I think they're going to come up with some solutions that will cost some money. So we're going to have some more discussions, definitely at a council level, on how they're going to address this problem and what kind of things that they'll be able to do. Because one of the things that raises up in this is, do we do a one stop, or, where do we put that one stop? And then we get, I don't want it in my district, so there's so many facets to that strategy. But the library is part of it, because in our communities, we are the one building that anyone can walk into without a membership or a fee. So we are used by folks experiencing homelessness, because they may need shelter from the heat or the cold. They may need to get online to connect with their family. They may be trying to find resources for housing or work. So we are part of that. We're peripheral. We're not a direct service component of that, but we definitely support that support network. So that's why I was engaged in that process and trying to tell the library's role in that and how we handle it, because the way we handle people who are unsheltered is a key part of what we have to do. So sorry to take us down that road, but I will say that during the COVID-19 crisis, the city has done some very effective things to address homelessness. They have really gotten people off the street and put them in hotels. And when they focus that, they've been able to do wraparound services to get them housed. And ultimately, that's what you're trying to do, is get those folks who are experiencing homelessness back in housing. You don't necessarily want them to be in a shelter setting for long periods of time. So telling how that works and educating people on the world of homelessness has really been a part of this. So I'm really hopeful for the future that we look at that and we come up with solutions for that to address rapid rehousing. That's the big thing. And in the city of Richmond, we don't have a lot of housing that's affordable for many folks who end up in homelessness. So,
Scott, I have a question. Prior to COVID, we had a staff person that was stationed at the library. Are we hoping to continue that arrangement?
Yep. Yeah, so we worked with the Daily Planet and Homeward. Homeward helped us fund a part-time social worker who we provided an office for at the main library. So when we would encounter people who were experiencing homelessness at main library, and our branches were welcome to make us aware of folks in their location, that we have this resource who acted as a connector to those people who were in homelessness. So they would let them know, like, hey, there's this resource available. Let me connect you to it. And he was very effective in doing that. And as soon as we can get our doors open, we'll definitely resume that. And I included funding for that in this year's budget to try and help support that. I asked for it last year, we didn't get it, but Homeward was able to support it as part of that continuum of care. We'll continue that, because I'm convinced that that is an effective way for us to address that issue, because our librarians, we're awesome at finding people resources in the community, but having a person who's dedicated to it, who knows how to not only get to those resources, but to navigate those resources to get people in these crisis situations taken care of, that's been really critical. And he did an excellent job of that. And I'm hoping that we can continue that. I don't know that we need to expand that. I don't know that I need a social worker in every location. I think so far the part-time social worker has been connecting with them, because one of the things that people don't know a lot about homelessness is that the homeless service providers know who the homeless people are in most cases, because they do a census every year in January. So they know the folks who are out and about, and the officers who are going around, they know where they're at. So the challenge is the people that you see who are really in homelessness, that are kind of the folks you see all the time, they're the ones who are the most difficult to get out of that situation, and they take the most investment of resources to try and get them into a long-term housing situation. That's the thing that COVID has kind of done, is that by putting them in the hotels, we really identified them. gave us an opportunity to do those wraparounds and get them out. And so it's really been remarkable over the last 6 months. I see a lot less people around our libraries using our resources like that, or just camped out on the Wi-Fi all day, because they found other places to go. And so we'll see what happens. But that'll be an interesting change post-COVID for sure.
Other thoughts, and it's interesting so far. We've mentioned the education catch-up efforts, and I think that's Emily, you're absolutely on target there. That we can't make any of the library programs really have to, even if they're educational, they've got to move away from pure we're extending the school day feeling to something that catches kids and excites them, and that's one of the things that our youth librarians, I think, have just done a really nice job. The makerspace things, for example, just building interest where kids are learning without realizing they're learning is, sort of the idea. And also helping build that independence. I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, kids have been in the home with their parents, pretty much around the clock for, months at a time now. The libraries actually are one of the ways that kids get a little independence in a safe environment. So I think that's, those are great ones. And what I was going to point out is that one, the socialization is part of that, getting out and doing other things. The Hispanic is a little bit of a different issue, and the homeless interaction is sort of both short-term and long-term post-COVID. The first two are almost in immediate looking, how do we respond to COVID? And then also, how are those programs going to roll out, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road? Because I think when we talk about post-COVID, we need to look at it both, what are the immediate things we need to do, and what are the things that we're going to be working on that master plan with Steinberg about, and some of that. But those are important. And I'd like to think, Sharon, that we're doing a pretty good job, particularly at Broad Rock, with the Hispanic population. But I'm less sure how well we're able to coordinate with RPS on some of that. I think you alluded to that. And RPS, I know we've made lots of attempts to reach out to them. We've had some successes and some less successful tries. And I think that's maybe because it almost has to be a school by school thing in a lot of cases, that we haven't gotten the administration to say, well, let's throw this to the libraries and do it. It's been a little more of a broader, small battles to get the wins there with the education. I don't know, Scott, would you agree with that still? You're muted, that's okay.
Yep. So the thing that I've encountered since being in Richmond is that we've been more effective at a local level with our branches, reaching out to the schools and the neighborhoods. If I can connect with the media center librarian, that is a pretty good opportunity for us to get some access to the school and kind of share our information. I have worked on a parallel track with administration. The thing that's been kind of crazy is that we've had superintendent changes, like 7 superintendents in 10 years or something. That's been a challenge, and the administration changes, and we have such turnover sometimes that it's hard to kind of get some sustainability of initiatives. So we keep trying. I mean, we keep working with the administrators that are available and willing to work with us, but it's a challenge.
Well, Judy Deachman is the media instructional specialist for Richmond Public Schools, and she should be happy to coordinate with you. I also want to strongly encourage you to work with the Sacred Heart Center. That is a big resource for the Hispanic community. And a lot of the fears and, of the Hispanic community stem from not knowing things, and they get a lot of information through, the resources from the Sacred Heart Center. They trust them. My last comment, though, I have to commend you all for the Black History Month events. They were fantastic, but I want to say that Black history does not just occur in February. It occurs all year. And I would hope that we continue to integrate Black History events all throughout the year.
Yep, for sure. I couldn't agree more.
Sharon, you mentioned Judy at RPS, media specialist for the system. It sounds like you may know Judy.
She works under my sister.
Okay. I was just going to suggest maybe that's one that as things, as the time comes to make a contact there and things are settling in a little bit, that maybe you and whoever from Scott's team, maybe you could sort of coordinate a little bit together on it, because those contacts always open up easier when somebody has a relationship.
That's
so
fine.
I don't know whether you'd be comfortable with that, but it would sure be helpful, I think.
That's fine. And
Okay.
also the musical events. My sister is the coordinator for fine arts for Richmond Public Schools. And no one contacts her about these events. I'm certainly going to get on her, for her to contact someone about them. But that could be broadcast to a larger audience through Richmond Public Schools. You just have to get the right person. You know what I mean? I guess with some changes in administration, it may be a little difficult, but if you get the right person, the word will get out.
Good.
We made some good inroads. And again, it really works best when our youth associates and our branches can make those connections. And then we kind of work from the grassroots up instead of the grass tops down. So we really do have that multifaceted approach, and we've gotten some good relationships. I know some of the media center librarians have really carried our message very well to their students and then students throughout the system. So
And Sharon, I got to say, Sacred Heart Center makes a great deal of sense, by the way. That really is one that is central to the Hispanic community. And you're absolutely right, particularly the more recent Hispanic community where the parents often don't speak English. They really rely upon that. So, okay, any other things we want to talk about? We're hitting that 1 o'clock time here, and we've just lost Janet, but that's okay. Anything else anyone wants to talk about before we wrap up today, with the idea that we still need to address the strategic plan? But as Scott and I were talking, it's better that we do a lot of that in person probably as we can here, as we keep moving. We're hitting edges of it, but anything else for today? No, we're good. Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone for all your continued support and work on everything here, and wish you really good luck with your council people, and to sort of remind you that we've got a short time window here. So please reach out and make those contacts as soon as you possibly can to try to support Scott's lobbying efforts. He's doing a great job, but we need to be with him on it, okay? And we don't need to take a vote to adjourn or anything because we're a Zoom meeting. So thank you all.
Thank you.